Good day. My name is Manuel Angel Hidalgo. And today we're going to talk about the budget. We were going to talk about duplicate and overlapping programs, but because the budget crisis has become such a major thing, and we could have a potential government shutdown again, so I think we ought to look at it.
Well, I want to know about the why we're having a government shutdown.
You know, it's just political gridlock. Basically, it's a fight on the budget between the executive branch and the Congress.
But what exactly is in the budget, though, to cause something like that?
Well, there are several parts of the budget. Statutory, discretionary, and interest is part of the statutory, but I think we ought to address the interest separately. So statutory means that they don't have to vote on it. So that's things like Social Security, Medicare, and interest is part of that. And all told, that's roughly 62 to 70% of the budget, which means the discretionary part is just 30%. Now, interesting enough, statutory is also congressional salaries. So they're statutory, so they get paid whether they're there or not. Wow. Okay, and then you've also got some other programs like Pell Grants are there, and other things. There's some refugee programs. There are like 40 or 50 different programs, but they're also statutory. So we're only really voting on 30% of the budget. And that includes things like transportation, defense, Medicaid, and agriculture, which also includes food stamps, Homeland Security. And that's what is caused, that's a shutdown. And of course, that affects the national parks. And I do volunteer tax work, and we haven't had all this stuff to start, and so we're behind. We just started now, and we should have started in January. So it affects a lot of people.
So you do see problems, or do you see any problems with?
Yeah, well, I see some major problems because if you look at the mandatory things that they don't vote on, Social Security and Medicare, they're the biggest. That's right now 24% Social Security, roughly 14% Medicare. Well, we have an aging population. So we have roughly 49 million people on Medicare, Social Security now, give or take, and it's going to go to 80 million in 2030. And then, if you look at Social Security, there used to be in 1960 5 workers for 1 worker receiving it. 2010, there were 3 workers for 1 worker receiving. And when you have an aging population, that means there's not going to be enough money. So they're going to have to rob Peter to pay Paul.
Right.
And what are they going to cut out? They're going to have to go into defense, maybe transportation. They're going to have to raise taxes. And they may even pass something called the VAT tax. If you go to Europe, they have a VAT tax which can be 8 to 10%. So anytime you buy something, you pay a VAT tax. They're going to do something. I don't know what it's going to be. Now, let's talk about the interest. The interest is critical because for the last 10 years, give or take, we've had basically low interest rates, 3%. I can remember I bought a house in 1975 and my interest rate was 9%. When I retired from the Army in 1980, it spiked in a short period of time up to 24%. It didn't stay there. But I think traditionally, interest rates were like 6 or 7%. Now, if that goes up, what happens to the debt? You're going to have to pay more. So if the debt service now is 7%, so as interest goes up, that's going to keep going up. So I don't know where we're going to get the money, but it's going to be tough.
Well, what exactly, though, is the budget process? I don't think not too many people know what that.
Well, in 1974, they passed a Budget Act.
Yeah.
And that's been modified several times, but it's still basically the rules. So basically what's supposed to happen, in February, the executive branch is supposed to submit a budget to Congress. It goes to their committees. So they go back and forth and make their adjustments. And then they're supposed to submit it to the executive branch at the end of September. Now, according to the Budget Office, they've only done that about 4 times in 44 years.
4 times?
Now, what they get around it, they have what's called continuing resolutions. So they really don't have to vote on the individual items. So we don't really know what they're doing. And they have little backroom deals. That's so the money comes into play and the lobbyists, wait a minute, I need this and I need that, need that. So they add all the little things. They play games.
Colonel, you know, we have talked about the problems, we have talked about the budget as a process, but really, what can we do about the budget?
Well, actually, as individuals,
Right.
we can't do anything. Let's be honest. The lobbyist, the big power has to. We have to somehow get 50 million Americans to call voters, to call their congressmen, senators, and representatives, and ask them to pass a strong bill that forces them to follow the Budget Act of 1974. For example, we should ask Congress not to get paid. So after September, no pay for Congress. That would be one. Number two, the government workers that are laid off, the 600 or 800,000 people, they should stay on the job. They had nothing to do with that. Closing the national parks was not a good deal. But more importantly, we should have them vote on each legislation. For example, agriculture, whatever's in agriculture. And it should be published on the internet so we know exactly what's in the bill. So you can't add anything to it. Nothing at the 11th hour added. So when they vote on defense, we know who voted on defense. On Homeland Security. And if it's just a border fence, you know how they voted. I don't care what it is, but it should be, we should know what they vote on.
But Colonel, if I understand you correctly, you want them to publish on the internet exactly
What is in the bill. So if I want to read the agriculture bill, I can read what's in it. What's in the defense bill, where the money's going. It's going to bore some people, but people are going to be alarmed. And then you're going to see some duplicate and overlapping programs because they're all out there, which Congress does not like to review. As a matter of fact, since 2011, the Government Accounting Office, the GAO, has published a report on duplicate and overlapping programs every spring, and that's the stuff we want to address next week.
Well, you need to talk about that in the future.
Yeah.